Your someday starts today. It's time to explore and test the newest science, methods, and trends for creating a life you love with your host, Tanyamfk. Welcome to My Designed Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to My Design Life, where we learn and test the latest science, tips, tools, and strategies for you to create your best life every day. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at My Design Life Show and at Tanyamfk and at the My Design Life Show podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Marie Figueres Kreisinger, more easily known as Tanya MFK. And you are here to learn not only how to create your best life, but how to live it now. And I am thankful that you showed up. So my guest today is someone that has consistently followed her heart, and it has led her through a series of unseemingly connected adventures. From immersing herself in arts and crafts as a child, dabbling in photography, receiving her degree in graphic design, to crossing the Rio Grande in a $2 canoe for tacos and beer, following a passion for wellness all the way to Brazil to be taught through a translator for an advanced certification at the Dr. Ida Rolf Institute, and competing in endurance events such as the Hawaiian Ironman and the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. She embraces the belief that life is a brilliant series of occasions and accidents. All of these experiences have culminated in a desire to help others create environments that inspire, uplift, and connect with the essence of who they are through intuitive art. So she is here today to share with us the value of creating that intentional environment. Please welcome a fellow ex-Californian, Elizabeth Bertie Vanderliet. Welcome, Bertie.
Good morning, Tanya. It's a little early here, but it's such a great place to be with you.
Yes, thank you so much for meeting that early hour. I know it's wild against all these time zones, and we have a big one. I think we have a 9-hour time difference, so I really appreciate it. And it is so great to have you here today. Now, I am a full believer in the importance of creating environments that support us. I'm usually coaching on this within more goal-focused purpose. So we're usually talking about creating calm spaces for morning routines or a kitchen that's free of junk food. But a lot of how our homes and spaces feel come down to how they look and are actually decorated. So I'd love to hear a little more about your philosophy on why this matters so much.
Well, it started with, you gave a wonderful introduction about my whole life. And I think if I just interject there about that, I call it the sliding door for myself. Like, I always wanted to be an artist. Like, I mean, I really, truly, as a child, I've identified I wanted to be an artist. And yet I kept trying to validate it. And it wasn't until probably the last, 10 years where I've really gone back to the art and realized how much it fed me. So I took that sliding door this time. I'm riding that train, and I see it more and more how what we have in our environment affects us daily. And I use it on my website. I came up with, because I was always talking about, let's elevate our environment. Let's elevate it. And it's not just about elevating. It's about elevating it. It's about enjoying it and really appreciating that environment. And it's ours. We get to do it how we want it.
Yes. You said something so important right there about even just with your journey of having to validate, like going through art. And I know for myself, I have like an old pain from dance as a child. I loved dance. But I grew up very poor. And so the main goal that I was told was my goal was to make sure that I secured a future, that I had, was able to provide food and a roof over my head. And there was not anywhere to validate dance within that. It wasn't practical. And I gave that up. I walked away from that. And here I am now with, a business and doing these things. And I'm scrambling to find, like, where can I find a dance class? Because I realize I don't have to validate it. I get to just do it because I like to. And I love that you bring that up, that you came back to it because you weren't able to validate it. You were expected to validate it. And we are doing that with our homes, with our environments. Like, well, I can't justify getting that piece or doing that thing because why it's not practical, when it actually just might feed our soul or feel good.
Well, it's interesting. The word practical, it does. It comes into effect for everyone. However, I think it's becoming more and more clear for me that how we experience our environment has a far, far greater effect on our moods and everything. And so I I always say that art brings a vibration to you that is repetitive in your space. And
Mm.
so something that you enjoy is repetitive. And if it's a good repeat, that's a great thing. And if we look at people's environments, their offices, their bedrooms, even their bathrooms, and truly, if it's really a downer, that's a repetitive downer.
Yeah. Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. That can even be with just like a clutter or a mess or something, right? That I know for me, it's like, oh, that's been bugging me that it's just sitting there, and maybe it doesn't affect everything, but it is like you said, it's something you interact with on a regular basis. I love that you mentioned the bathroom. Like, let's be honest, like we show up there a lot. So if it's feels icky or for whatever or something negative, that actually affects how we feel and our experience on a regular basis.
Right, right. And I don't think people take the time or they don't want to invest in that belief.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm here to say it is important. I'm here to say my own experience. My why is because it's feeding my soul to do the art. Now I make the art, but I've identified that people they have an insecurity about purchasing art, and so I want to help people understand that it isn't difficult. It isn't, it's not some huge strategy. I mean, the topic of what is good art, that's been around forever, and I can get downright philosophical on it, and I can also talk about the little tricks that make it easier for the person who doesn't really know where to start.
Right. Well, and this is very different than, saying you have to come in and, your environment's so important, you guys, blow it all and hire an interior decorator and make this massive, create perfect space. Not everybody has access to something like that, but doing something mindful of, like you said, intentionally creating this space and the availability to do it through art is something that is accessible to us at all different levels, right?
Absolutely. And to believe that it isn't is a belief that isn't serving you.
Right. Yeah.
Because it doesn't take something big and it doesn't take something huge to change what you create in your space.
Right. I heard in one of your interviews, you actually mentioned how you've come into a lot of new spaces and you'll see some where there might be kind of a mishmash of items, but you can see a thought process and a personality. Whereas you can go into other houses that have like themes, like everything is perfect and matches, but it actually, there's no part of them in it.
Yeah, there's no heart. Well, we moved, like we both lived in California and we both left, and we're in Oregon, and there's a lot of new construction, and it's when you go into, I would describe it like this: when you go into a museum versus, have you ever gone into one of those houses where it's an older home, it's clean, but it's well lived in and it's got soul. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even have to be perfect, but it's got that soul, it's got that heart. And that's, trying to help people to discern what they can bring into their lives that gives them that soul. I can talk about art from so many different ways. It's my creation. It's what I see. But I love to share that part. People are always very intrigued by how an artist comes up with things. What do they do? How do they do it? And so that's my why. I love it, but I want people to feel like it's accessible to them.
Right, right. What are some of those myths that keep people from thinking it is accessible?
Not right now. Don't do that right now. We don't have time. I wouldn't know where to start. In one of my interviews, the gentleman said, "Oh, I feel like I'm like getting married to something, like you can never get rid of it."
Yeah.
But along that line, I really think that when you are connected with something like brings that vibrancy and elevates so that you can experience it, that enjoyment comes back. It's like I said, it's repetitive. And then you understand. And I mean, I have stories with all of my paintings, not like,
Mhm.
I mean, they are a piece of me. I want to get to know people. I want to have people that enjoy life, a little quirky, intelligent, and they want to expand. So if I use those two words, expand or contract, like I'm looking for expansion, not just for bigger, more, and better, but for beauty within that expansion. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like it's meant to be used in the most loving way, the expansion that we can feel when we allow.
Yeah. It is interesting. I have a friend who is an art teacher, and she's always had this appreciation for art, and she would be the type of person who, if there were, a bunch of teapots, that you were purchasing, I don't know why I'm using that example, but let's just say a bunch of teapots. She may get the one that costs more or whatnot because she likes it's quirky or whatever, that's very her. And coming from the mindset that I grew up with, which was definitely a scarcity mindset, a lack of abundance, I was always going to go with like what the deal was. It doesn't matter what it looks like, it's functional and it works. And as I've gotten older and as I've started to finally accept the abundance that is really there and let go of this scarcity mindset, it is the first time in my life it actually started to make sense that these things that seemingly weren't practical, like why are you going to spend more for this thing, like you were saying, for like it's something you interact with every day. For me, especially in Europe, we use the tea kettle, the electric tea kettle, all several times a day, right? So I interact with the electric tea kettle often, very often. I would say literally probably at least a dozen times a day, because it's a European thing. And I remember if I would have seen kind of a designer teapot unique thing, I would have thought it was ridiculous. And now, like that little joy of kind of having my fancy quirky, like it made so much sense. And yes, I could have gotten the lower cost one and it would have worked, absolutely. But it was really a part of my environment, and it was so much, it was a process. As silly as this may seem to some people, but I know there are some who struggle in the same situation. It would seem so ridiculous, like it's just a teapot, or why does it matter? But there's a little joy that comes from that interaction of dealing with this one piece that means something to me, that has a little flair to it, in my everyday life. And I think that's what you're saying, right? Is that these pieces, these art pieces, that's what they do.
Right. Right. That is what I'm saying. And then so when you allow it, and you get to feed your own environment, and then you get to enjoy it. It's your experience. And one of the things I've been developing over the last, I don't know, maybe about the last year, I started doing intuitive work. And mostly because I was feeling drawn to something sort of bigger than just me, and understanding what was going on in my life, and just slowing down enough to hear sort of deeper message, the interior message, not so much about what's going on the outside. And I do believe that that's why I started painting, and it started coming up when I was rolfing. Rolfing, the irony to it is, like, I always laugh about my thinking about being a rolfer. God, I never thought I'd be like in a room with someone in their underwear working on their bodies, but it's just too funny. But the depth to which rolfing helps someone align their structure, and the way I would work with them, there was a deep connected like silence for me, and I had to listen from that place. And that's the place I paint from. It's a peaceful place. I do have to say that painting is really hard. It's something difficult. It's something joyful for me. There's a definite flow to the feeling when I'm in that flow and I feel like it's going well. But there's times when I produce just, I want to call it crap, I just don't want, and it didn't work right.
Mm.
But the idea of the art, the flow, I kind of lost my train of thought, so I'm admitting that. But you had asked a question.
Well, I think,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I think just connecting to why it matters or means something, and you went into kind of the intuitive art component, which I think we should even dive into a little more about what that even means and what you are doing and how it's more than just, I want to paint this pretty picture. It comes into a connection space with what's inside and that person and that vibrancy.
So I took an intuitive class and we were doing readings, and I quite frankly I had no attachment to it. So it just started happening. And what happened was my readings were coming through in juxtaposed to somebody else. They were coming through very image oriented. And so I started with some of my own images and I painted them. And they were very different from my normal style or how I had originally developed. And it was fun. So then I reached out and I've been doing readings for others. And then after the reading, if they choose, I do an intuitive piece of work from that reading with some of the colors, the images. I never know what it's going to look like. And I've been calling it just an intuitive art piece, something that is, made manifest from your life.
So let's dig into that a little bit. So when you were learning the intuitive piece, you first have the experience on yourself. Is that what you were learning at first, kind of to listen to yourself, or was it always listening to another person?
Let's look at it as a multi-layered cake, so to speak. I think what happened for me, I started learning about the different types of, let's call them messages, how they come in. And I started to realize that I might very well have been shutting down intuitive messages for a lot of my life. That it's neither here nor there, good or bad. It just is. I mean, a lot of people don't listen to their gut. Mm-hmm. And then other people listen a lot. But the truth is, I think everyone has a level of intuitiveness. In fact, I think everybody is very artistic. But people look at me and they say, oh, I could never do that. And I'm like, well, that's okay. That's spoken from your mouth. I'm not going to make you do art, but
well, it's true if you say it is, like that's one of those things. It's true if you say it is, but as soon as you say that you can do it, guess what? You'll be able to.
I know. Well, so that's what happened with the intuition. It seemed a little funny. My husband was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but it's really fun, and I'm liking it." And so the first layer was that yes, I possess this ability to receive. And I know it sounds so funny, it's so woo-woo-ish. However, it's just about centering myself, being open, and receiving what comes to me, messages, thoughts, images, colors. The next layer became in my class of doing readings for others, which is done the same way, centering and then delivering them without interpreting, which that is something there's a lot to be said for that. And then the art was my piece. I just decided to tag that on. I have been encouraged to try different ways, maybe doing an intuitive reading while I'm painting. I haven't gone there yet, but I'd say it continues the flow of creativity that I love, that keeps feeding my soul.
Yeah. So this is opposed to, I guess the traditional would be showing up at the canvas, kind of having an idea or a project in mind. So this is a way of kind of, it's almost like you show up to be instructed, but that instruction is coming from it within.
Yes, exactly. And it's weird. Like I said earlier, painting is like one of the hardest things I've ever done. And so, when you do you're really trying to go with trying to go in the direction of like my dream, but I create these barriers for me to get there. And painting is very fun and freeing, but it is difficult. So it takes the practice. I need to be doing it regularly. Mm-hmm. And I did a little there again. I'm trying to figure out like where I was going, but I love it so much.
Yeah. So you'll practice techniques, and you've been doing this for a while, but when you've also learned this new approach, and really not only is it an approach that you've gone and studied, but then learning to really have ownership of it in terms of this intuitive approach of just letting what comes out of you. And I absolutely understand like the woo woo part, but that's really what our show, we have all different kinds, because there's this whole thing is about designing your own life. It's about what creates the best life for me. And in this goal and in this episode is really for us identifying like this ideal environment. And so somebody can go to their local Target and buy a piece of art and enjoy it for whatever reasons. And I think we're going to discuss some of those myths that if it feels good, yes, there's no right or wrong, right? And at the same time, on a deeper level, there's this connection with the art that you can create, not only that you've learned to intuitively do through the messages and learning to be still enough to just see what's there, but also to connect that with a person. And that's what's so special about this next step that we can kind of move into, is how you are helping people create these environments that are connected through you. So you've listened to them, you're doing this intuitive step, and then you're creating something for them. That's how it works, right?
Yeah, that's one aspect. Like if you talk about the offer, I think during COVID, which has been a really weird time for everyone, the thing that got drilled home for me is how can you be in service of others? And, I started to think about it. It's like, wow, why don't people buy art, And it's because they feel like it's a difficult process.
Mm.
And really the truth for me is, I believe that if they love themselves deeply, then they connect with things. I mean, when we are happy, when we're, and we're not always content. I'm not talking about like all the time, it's not that. But when we're working with our inner selves and we're growing, then you can treat yourself. You can allow yourself. It's your space. Invest in it, because your space is kind of you. And so I can start with like the brass tacks. Like some people, you go in and they have a blank wall and they don't know what to do, don't know where to start. And having just moved into a new home, I use the blue tape a lot. The blue tape, you just buy a blue masking tape. If you've ever built a home or ever wanted somebody to work on something, you always put the blue tape there. Take the blue tape and put a square, a rectangle on a wall. Figure out what you want. How big do you want? And I guarantee you it sounds like a bad or a funky idea, but if you take that tape and you say, I want a 16 by 20, and you put it up there and you walk by it for a few days and you'll go, wow, I didn't realize it. That's way too small. It needs to be a bigger painting. It has to be. I'm kind of chuckling with you're talking about being raised, from scarcity. I always felt that frugality had to be like it has to be useful. And I think one of the things for me was I can make that. Yeah. I can build that. I could paint that. And so I didn't allow myself to go and buy paintings. And when I did, I realized that it completed a circuit of allowing for myself.
Yeah. I love that, because you said something earlier too, when you first started, was that we have to like be happy or even be content with ourselves and love ourselves. And it almost seems like, okay, well, where's the connection there? But I can also see where, like in buying art, you mentioned, we don't know where to start. And I also think there's a huge part of the fact that many of us don't feel equipped with the understanding, the art world has always been kind of put in this bubble or even on this pedestal or this avant-garde or even a snobbery of like, well, you don't get it type of thing. So there's already an apprehension of like not wanting to feel like the fool, not wanting to make the wrong, right? You don't want to be like, why would you get that? That's ridiculous. We can look at, the painting where it's just a line and a dot and people are like, I don't get it. Why would you do that? And also feeling, or that you're going to be taken advantage of. Did I make the wrong purchase? Did I do, get something that was incorrect? And when I can see now, like if we are to come to this position of looking at art, wanting to create this environment where we love ourselves, then all of those judgments fall away. And it doesn't matter, right? What matters is how it makes you feel.
Right. And it's very freeing. And I I do. I mean, I talk specifically about my first real original art piece, and I was fortunate enough to meet the woman, and I had no idea who she was. My father and I were traveling to the East Coast, and we had an introduction, and I walked in. This is like really lofty. Only twice in my life have I walked into places and sort of been dumbfounded by the art. And it was at a cathedral in Rome. And it was this tiny little gallery in Provincetown. And I walked in and I was like, I still get the sense of the tears in my eyes. And I don't know what that is for everyone else. I know what that is for me. And this woman came up to me and she said, "Hello, I am Anne with an E." And I said, "Well, I am Elizabeth Ann with an E." And I had such a meaningful exchange with her. And I knew when I went in there, I was going to buy a piece of art. And I did feel like a kid, counting my money in my pocket. I'm like, okay, I got this much money. But it was such a wonderful experience. And I have that painting and I love that painting. And
And it
that
carries the
repetition.
memories.
Yeah, I can't talk more about that repetition because it's a positive, elevated repetition, and I get to experience that all the time. And I chose it and I invested in myself. And that's the self-care and love that I'd love to see others have.
Yeah. It's powerful. It's extremely powerful. It's interesting you said it because I actually forgot until now about the first time I ever did invest. And it is investing. And I don't mean that it's going to, be something you can put on the bank and put a down payment on a house on, but that you're actually spending money into something for the investment of your own pleasure, the investment of your own just joy of what that can bring. And again, going back to the mindset that I had as this a young adult at the time, just starting to even have, a job and feel any sort of sense of security. I remember we were buying a couch. It was a clearinghouse. Somebody was, they're emptying up a space, and there was a couch we were purchasing, and they had this art piece on the wall, and I just loved it. And I didn't have any reason or why. It was actually a metal work, and I was just like, it just looked very spacey to me, and I thought it was so cool, kind of this 70s vibe. And I turned it over, and there was this old yellowed piece of paper that actually had information on the artist. And it was explaining that he was using chemistry to put different acids on the metal, and he had hammered different places, and that's what gave it the effects. And I was like, I have to have this. And at the time, it was $80, which was like unheard of for me to spend money like that. I was terrified, like, oh my God. But I just couldn't let it go. And I did it. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I had such a story with it. Like you were saying, that memory and that connection and that experience that I had. I bought it with my first husband, who I lost to cancer a couple of years after that. And so having that piece and that connection, it's so much more than what I think we try to reduce it to, right? It is so much more.
Right. Right. And if we dive right in there about what happened for me and what happened for you, the truth is, I want to connect with you. I would love you to see my art, and I'd love to have someone have a connection with my art. But really what I want you to connect with is why I do what I do, what I believe in, because then that helps you reading that little piece of paper. I mean, that really contributed to part of it, because
it changed
a full
everything.
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so how do you move into this space with people? How do these readings happen and the art process happen where you help people create this environment for themselves?
Well, the intuitive stuff is how I have worded it is not, I mean, it might not be for everyone, which is fine, but I know a lot of people enjoy having readings. So on my website, you can purchase a reading. At the end of the reading, if you would like to purchase a piece of art, I would just apply the reading right to the art, and then we'd go from there. but you can have a reading with me. I also have like a 15-minute discovery call. I mean, it just doesn't cost anything. You know, if you want to talk to me, you know, understand, am I doing any landscapes right now? Am I doing any water? You know, I do, basically there's off the shelf purchasing, there's commissions, and now the intuitive work. The commissions are harder for me. They, you know, just because, I mean, sometimes sometimes you might think that it is a planned painting, so it's more easy, but it isn't. It's because there's now two minds trying to create something that the one mind is going to love. And so I have to be intuitive and read minds. No, it's a discovery process. So
yeah, there's a different set of constraints. Well, and so through the intuitive process, can you walk us through at least anything that maybe not be proprietary of what's someone to expect? How does that process work? Do they need to know, or do you really just feel out, maybe they don't know, they're just trying to figure it out, or do you just do something through what you feel?
Are you talking about that piece of painting?
Like through the intuitive reading.
Okay, so the intuitive reading comes, it's messages. So I deliver it. How I have been doing it most recently is, you know, I get your permission, you pay for the thing, and then I do the reading without you, and then we do a Zoom call together, and I talk about things as they came to me, and then I see if there's a more importance to one thing or the other. And you know, I have all sorts of things come. I just write them down. I mean, I'm not the interpreter. I'm, like I said earlier, I'm the receiver. And so, I mean, I get funny things that come up, you know, bird cages with birds flying out. Like, what does that mean to you? And like somebody's in tears going, oh my God, my mother used to take care of birds. Or, I mean, there's no judgment. So, but with that, like, I do get a lot of images. And so if somebody wanted a piece painted from that time, that adds to the experience of the reading, the piece of artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. The depth of the
did that answer your question enough?
Yeah. So to recap that, essentially, when you don't actually have to meet with somebody if they purchase a reading, or is there a certain amount of information you need about them before you just that?
No, in fact, I've done readings for friends, and that is when my lens of friendship, actually, I have to take
kind of
those
clear your mind.
Really clear it out, and like, oh no. So the less I know, I mean, it does, if you had something specific that you were concerned about at a particular time or wanting to understand, yeah, I can work with that. That's fine. But normally I'm listening.
But overall, the intuitive process is just kind of the simple connection of like, hi, this is Joe. Joe wants an intuitive reading, and all you need to know is, okay, Joe, great. You go away. You understand the connection to Joe, that's somebody, and from there, see what comes. And then that's essentially the intuitive reading. You present what's come to you to that person, and through there, find what they either want to move forward. Maybe everything means something, like you said, maybe something means more than others. And then from there, determine what the actual project will be, and then go from there. Okay.
Yes. So it's kind of this would be a good interjection point. So as a certified rolfer, I worked on people, and it's based on a 10-session series. And when I first started doing intuition, like it was beyond my belief system to believe I could do something without being face to face with someone. So you're saying, like, you don't have to be face to face. No. And I have had to break one of my belief barriers, because as a rolfer, I just didn't believe you could help someone without me putting my hands on them. And so this has been a real shift for me to say, yeah, I can do this. I don't even have to be in the same room with the person. And that has been a really big shift for me. But I never lose my roots of rolfing. I never lose the internal stuff that I learned about myself, like doing endurance events. I mean, I feel as if everything I've done has brought me to now. And that's why I say the sliding doors, like, okay, I'm hopping on that train. I'm going to use everything I've taken from my life and I'm bringing it with me to utilize.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and it makes so much sense for me. I'm a tattoo person, and I have one of my favorite tattoo artists. They have these images that you can see and you just go, there's nobody who walks up and says, okay, so I want this like picture of this thing, but I want some lines through it and then dots here and then a weird bird. And he just does these so interesting mixes that you can tell it's not some preconceived, it's not a common like, hi, I want a flower, I want a rose. Like he really takes, so essentially there is no commission. You give him maybe some background, maybe some ideas, but he takes it and just creates this art piece, and that's what you get, and that's his process. And I love that, because what you walk away with is something that means so much, but at the same time it takes away your own limitations, I guess, as the non-artist, as the person coming in going, yeah, if I had to pick it, I guess I would go with this. But with somebody who's able to come in and go, this is what I see, this is what I felt, it's such as there's such a special exchange between what can be created, right? And so to me, that makes absolute sense. I mean, we can go, yes, it could sound woo-woo, it could sound this, but ultimately, if we break it down to the elements of what art and creativity are, if it's so woo-woo for any of you guys here, which by this time you should get used to that on my channel, but if it's too much for you, you know, you can go like, this is what co-creating is in any space. This is what working with a team is, where somebody can go, well, let me see what I feel out and come up with, and we work together and go from there. And essentially, that's what you're creating. And like you said, yes, you can do commissions, you can do all these things. You're an artist, of course you can do that. But the real special kind of oomph that I think your business and that brings on the philosophy that's so real to you, which is the connection, the beauty, the creating a space intentionally beyond just, yes, I want a picture of my grandmother, is this part that you're able to bring in with the intuitive art. If I could summarize that.
Well, I mean, God, can we get that on tape here? I mean, thank you. That's my marketing person right there. No, yeah, I mean, but it's really, it's true. And I sometimes wonder if it's the ripe old age that I'm getting to, but like some certain things are falling away, and the importance of like the interior and where those images come from and creating. I mean, these are things that are really important to me now.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing them.
Yeah. Well, and that's why people like you show up and exist, because you're not the only artist around. If somebody wants something specific over here and goes, I only want pictures of pigs, then there's a pig artist out there and probably designs beautiful pigs that you can go get. But to come in, to come in, this is the area that you do. And like, again, you have a wide range. And so one thing I'd love to bring up as we get even maybe more granular into the specifics of painting, like behind you, you have this gorgeous piece of, it looks like a farm type of situation, or orchard or whatnot. And then you have kind of more of a watercolor-esque, I'm assuming these are all oils behind you, but a little different. I've even seen in some of your work on your website, they're a little more abstract. And so you're not limited into a certain style. You know, I can't help but thinking, when I think of, I come up with what means you, I picture the artist who's like, angrily throwing like this emotional thing, but it's going to fit with the person and with what they're looking at. So it may be a picture of, like you said, a cage and birds flying out, or it can be, I don't know, maybe you give us a couple examples of like that range.
You're talking specifically the intuition. Let's see, some of the stuff is the first one I ever did came to me while I was in Savasana at the end of a yoga class. And like, when I say it comes to me, it's like, I don't know why, I don't know how, but like my son had given me this rock that was shaped like a heart. And I had it sitting on my desk, and I'm lying there thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, that I see that image. And it was this rock in my hand. And then, so I painted it, and I did it entirely different than I would normally do. I painted it on a huge canvas, somewhat abstract. And I finished it and I was like, okay, all right, it's okay. And it didn't go that well. Well, I had to move the canvas and I put it upside down and I was like, oh, there, that's it. That's it. And it worked. So that, I mean, that's an image. I worked with a gal who, there were some very, yeah, I know, like trying to tell you about these things is hard. I mean, some of these pictures will be on the website, but you know, when people are in transitions, there are items that are important, or there is vision that is important, something in the future or something present. So color can be a part of it, but the items that are in it are important.
Yeah. So it can vary all over.
It varies
styles,
all over.
And you'll just, well, you have the discussion and then from there you can just go with it. So if it ends up as an abstract, if it ends up as a very specific location or a thing,
I will say that I try to have, you know, at the end of the reading, and if you choose a painting, I try to have some discovery with you, because everyone has a built-in expectation. And so I want to have a discovery, you know, time where we discern what you expect, like, and what you don't like. I mean, I don't want to do an abstract for somebody who likes realistic art. So, you know, I try to kind of, you know, short circuit some of the obvious things.
Right,
so that,
right.
I mean, we are looking for success for both of us.
Of course, of course. Well, so as we're starting to kind of wind down here, as we've learned about, you know, the importance of the environment, importance of why, you know, we can kind of let practicality go sometimes and just get to enjoy our space, just to get to create these things that we interject with often, that this, you know, vibe, if you will, matters so much in our everyday lives. We've also discussed kind of the process that you're able to bring to people, this uniqueness that you don't hear often about this intuitive art, which is such a beautiful thing to be able to bring into your life. As those people are kind of coming around and going, you know, maybe I do need to do something about my blank wall over here. But we also, as we discussed, we know that there can be these apprehensions, these art rules that we need to learn to let go of. Do you have any maybe advice as they are maybe deciding they need to move on, like move and go, maybe I should do something, but they have these apprehensions? Any maybe kind of?
There's two views. You look at it where you go into your house and you try and find a place that doesn't feel complete. You know, the reason it's difficult is because this is supposed to be pleasurable and expansive and not an assignment to be constrictive. So I would say when you're in your spaces, notice how you're feeling. And if you want to put a piece of art on a wall, like you've identified a space that you want to have, take a look at the rest of your environment. I mean, decide for yourself, invest in yourself and your belief. Like, are you preferring an image? Are you preferring, is color more important to you? Is size of the canvas more important to you? So the assignment being is to be aware and to take notice, because if you are willing to look at your own space, then you're willing to see where it could be better.
Right.
And
so if you want to know that art is for you, you really need to stop and see how you feel. Like, that's the answer, right? There isn't like, well, according to your style, I would recommend this. It's like, how does it feel? I mean, really about coming into themselves.
Right. And it's hard to say. I mean, when I go to clean up a room, you know, it's do you throw out the baby with the bathwater and start all over? And I don't want to be telling anybody that they have to do anything, you know, gargantuan to change their vibe. But if you have one piece, I mean, it's like flowers in a room, fresh cut flowers, you know, versus dead flowers. I mean, really, those two have a vibe, you know, and there's people that put out flowers, and then, like, if I could leave and my husband would not water a plant, you know, and it would die right in front of him. And that's just him. That's okay. He doesn't, those are not his skills. But people will put out flowers and then you're like, God, they haven't taken them down yet and they're dead. So these are things that are real and they affect our vibration. And so if we find something, a place where we want something, try the blue tape. Think about colors that you'd want in there. And the irony to it is that you might not think you're ready, but if you do it, other things will shift around it, because now there's a different pivot point.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes sense. So as anyone listening, guys, if you're like, okay, it's time for me to get some art, it only sounds like there's a lot of rules to let go of. All those preconceived notions and myths about the right way to get art, the right way to do something. Ultimately, if you're really wanting to create a space, yes, you could look at interior design rules and all that, but in the end, it seems like it comes down to what it feels like, what
You
feels
really
right to you.
You want to connect with the art. You want it to feel like, and you'll know when it happens. It just, it happens. Does it mean it's absolutely hands down perfect in every way? No, it isn't. In the moment, you have to make a decision. And sometimes that in itself is difficult for people.
Right. Well, you make your decision, and to hell what anyone else thinks is what I'm going to say there, right? Because really it's about what's going to create that space for you. So, well, now before my last question, can you please tell everyone where they can find you, learn more about you, the offers you have going on, and anything else?
Okay, you can find me at Elizabeth Vanderliet on Instagram, or on Facebook of Elizabeth Vanderliet Studio. But more importantly is my website, where you'll see most of my work. So, and that is elizabethvanderliet.com.
Awesome.
I'm so excited. My husband just brought me a cup of coffee.
Oh, wonderful. I know it's quite early over there for you.
And for those of you in California and all the fires, we've got our Lake Tahoe.
Yes, California. So, so you have that. They can find you there, learn more about you, follow some of your work on Instagram. And is there anything specific you have going on or offers at this time?
Right now, I would say if you book a reading and you want to apply it to a painting, I'll just apply it directly to the painting. And a painting price on a intuitive piece is anywhere from $500 up. It depends on what size you get. So reading is $100. It would just be applied directly, and you don't have to get the painting if you just want to have readings. That's fine.
Right. That gives you your own sense of information already.
Yes. And so I'm just painting and putting things up. That's what I'm doing. So I would invite you. I'd want to meet you. If you want to book a call and talk for 15 minutes, I'd love it. I want to meet. I'd like building a tribe. It's fun, it's exciting, and I like to connect. So please.
I love it. Yes. So you guys go, you can find her on her website on Instagram. You can get the reading, or just come for the 15-minute chat. That comes with no attachment, no anything there. Just show up and connect and chat about art a little bit. So, well, now for the last question, again, as we kind of discussed this a little bit already, but as somebody may be ready to take this step, getting tired of the white walls, what is that first thing that they should do to really become intentional in the environment? I know you mentioned a few ways, so maybe what's the number one way they could take action right now?
Okay, so let's say the person has decided that they absolutely want a piece of art. Like, we're not like just raising vibrations here. Right. So I can't state it enough that knowing what size you want on that wall is very, very important. I mean, if you're looking at a blank wall, do you want one piece? Do you want a collage of different things? That would be first. And then the second is, because this is your show and you're interviewing me, I'd say go to my website and look through the paintings. I mean, if nothing speaks to you, that's fine. But if color speaks to you and you like that, start to allow yourself to identify what you like. That's one thing, because it's so easy to continually keep busy and never allow.
Yeah.
But go to the website, see if there's anything you like, understand why you like it. I like it because it's water. I didn't know that water made me feel so good, or it's blues, or it's bold colors, or it's lighter colors, or, it's very, there's so much to it, but allow would be my biggest, and if that comes from just thinking about this interview for the next few days, then it's started. There's something in you that's going to start brewing.
So really take some time to discover even what you like, and that can open up the door, like what resonates with you to that next step of actually hopefully making a purchase for your wall, right?
Right. I mean, the person who's trying to do it right can take that rightness too far, and then there's no joy. So trying to feed the joy aspect.
Well, I love it, guys. There's all kinds of steps for you here. Thank you so much for being here, Bertie. Are there any last thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share with the listeners before we wrap up?
Oh, I just saying thank you to you and to those that have listened through all the woo-woo.
Well, that's what we're here for, guys, giving you new ways and tips of creating, the life that you want. And something like your environment is a huge part of your life. And dare I say your success and all those things that you want can come down to how it feels. And sometimes that's an art piece on your wall. So you guys make sure to get in touch with Elizabeth Bertie at Elizabeth_Vanderliet, as you'll see right here on Instagram, and Elizabeth Vanderliet Studio on Facebook, and of course at her website. As always, you can connect with us at My Design Life Show and at Tanyamfk on Facebook and Instagram. You can learn more about our courses, workshops, and coaching to grow your business and create a life you love at Tanyamfk.com. Now, if you like this episode, then make sure to subscribe, follow, and be notified when our next one is up by clicking that button now. And remember, your someday starts today. Make it the best. I'm Tanyamfk, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. You can catch us every week at 1 p.m. EST live on the My Design Life Show Facebook page and on YouTube at the Tanyamfk channel. See how the challenges go by following us on Facebook and Instagram at My Design Life Show and at Tanyamfk. Do you have a method, tip, or hack you'd like to share or explore? Submit to be a guest or suggest a topic by visiting mydesignlife.show.